Hi, welcome to Gun Stuff. I'm Scott Kiefner. In light of the record-breaking gun sales that are going on right now, a bunch of us have been sitting around talking, and we decided that we think it's a great idea to put a new gun owner video out. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to go over all the ins and outs of being a new gun owner, trying to figure out what you need to select, what fits you best, instead of trying to be in a crowd of people at a shop or online where you don't really have a chance to fill these things out, and you may or may not understand exactly what all these pieces are and how they fit together. So first of all, we would like to say welcome to the family if you're a new gun owner, or if you're thinking about getting one. Of course, you can get it through our store. But one of the things that we want to say is welcome to the family, because you are now capable of defending yourself. And this is what our country is, one of the great things about our country, and it's one of the things that we love. So in starting with that, I have been a firearms instructor for my entire adult career in both military and law enforcement. So I've trained with and instructed everyone from a first-time shooter all the way up to advanced shooters on SWAT teams and military special forces and things of that nature. So I've got a chance to work the whole gamut over the years, and I'm very grateful for that, and I'd like to try and impart some of this information onto you. But one of the things we're going to start with on the very first thing right out of the box is firearm safety. And firearm safety over the years has came into it's been pared down, it's been refined, it's been reevaluated. Every time something happens, every time there's accidental shootings, all these things are taken back into scrutiny, and then they're reassessed and they're reevaluated in how the instructors present that to all the people on the line, or the students that they're trying to teach that are the new first-time shooters. So essentially what has happened is these things have all been consolidated and brought down to 4 basic firearms gun safety rules. And the first one is to treat every firearm as if it's loaded. Okay, so you don't put it in front of anything. You treat, when you pick that gun up, whether it's, even if you know it's unloaded, you treat it as if it's loaded, no matter what, every single time. Without question, it is always treated as if it's loaded. The next one is never point the firearm at anything you are not willing to destroy, because if you disregard rule number 1 and you do point it and the gun is loaded and you do have an accidental discharge, you are not going to shoot anything if you're not pointing the gun. You're not going to shoot a person, you're not going to shoot your pet or anything valuable if you're not pointing the gun at it, if you aren't willing to destroy it. The third is to keep your finger off the trigger until you are ready to fire. This is a very, very important rule because for a lot of us, we're buying guns for home defense, and there's a lot of things that we can do with startle response or bumping into things or cats jumping out, just like in the movies or something, that if you have your finger on the trigger, you might accidentally squeeze the trigger and have a negligent discharge. And there's a lot of different terminology over the years, from accidental discharge to negligent discharge to a whole host of those. But this is a first-timer video, so we're going to keep it straight. We're just going to keep it as simple as possible. But rule number 3: keep your finger off the trigger until you are ready to fire. Rule number 4 is be sure of your target and beyond. The reason for this rule is because you want to be able to positively identify your target. So if someone is coming into your home, you're positively identifying the threat. If you think that is a threat or a burglar, or if you're in a parking lot and someone's approaching you and you're trying to decide whether or not you need to defend yourself with deadly force, you are able to clearly identify the threat, and you are able to clearly describe what you see. So you know exactly what you are getting ready to engage with deadly force. The second part of that, being knowing what is behind it, is the simple fact that you could be in a crowded environment. You could be in a situation where you engage someone with deadly force, but there could be someone behind them, and that round may pass through that person and strike the person behind you, or strike that valuable or invaluable thing that you can't, this irreplaceable. So not that would, an object would deter you from engaging in deadly force if needed, but the big thing is you don't want to accidentally shoot someone that is behind the threat. And there's a lot of different training things that are involved with learning that skill. But first, but foremost, number 4, be sure of your target and beyond. So along with that, what we would like to see with everyone is to seek training. So once you get your firearm, you learn the basic fundamentals, you should immediately sign up for some kind of training course by a professional, or if you know someone that is a professional firearms instructor or military or law enforcement or someone who is very capable with firearm, that you just get with them, reach out to them and say, hey, can you take me out and shoot? Every single person, I've never seen an experienced shooter ever say no. They always say yes. They're more than happy to go out and teach people firearm safety and safe gun handling skills. We're going to get into a lot of that here, but what we're going to get into right now is we're going to go ahead and start off. We're going to go through pistol selection, we're going to go through holster selection, we're going to go through ammo selection, all these different things. So that way, after watching this video, you will be able to make proper choices, buy the right gear right up front, and be able to employ that gear and let it protect you. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to start loading up some guns up on the table so we can go through firearm selection. All right, so here we are. We got all kinds of guns laid out on the table here. So a bunch of these are mine. Some of them are the shows. So we got a wide array here. And what we want to go through is to be able to give you guys an overview of size and fitment. Okay, so when we're looking at our guns, there's going to be a lot of different things that we're going to ask of them. You know, it's just like any other tool. You don't use a hammer when you need a screwdriver. So basically, we need to know exactly what we want our gun to do. If we're wanting to buy our firearm, or if we've purchased our firearm already and it's strictly for home defense, we can go with a bigger gun. We can go with something that we can lock away, that we can keep safe. But then when we need it, we don't have any problem bringing this big gun out and using it because we are in our home and we know that area. Or if you are on the other end of the spectrum and you are going to be using this firearm as a concealed carry, then you have to start taking in and weighing the different pros and cons of size versus firepower and concealment. So just starting off, we're going to start off with our smallest, work our way up to the biggest, and just give a few of the pros and cons of each one. Okay, so we're starting off here. This is a Ruger LCP, and this is one of the smallest guns that we have in here right now. This shoots a 380, and this 380s, of course, we'll go into ammo selection and stuff like that later. But a 380 is a good defense caliber in the fact that this will buy you time to get out of the threat area. 380 is not the most powerful round, but it still is going to give you enough firepower that if you engage someone in a self-defense situation, they're going to stop what they're doing, and that's going to buy you time to get out of the area. Okay, so this is going to allow you to be able to conceal it very easily. This, of course, has a big finger groove on here, and that's just for people with bigger hands. But one of the things that we want for you to consider is some people I know, my wife, other people that have smaller hands, they can take a small gun like this and they can hold it and it will be more comfortable. When I grip this gun without this big extension on here, it makes it very hard for me to hold this. So now I'm essentially only having without this magazine extension, I essentially only have just a couple fingers on the gun. Okay, so this may not be a good fit for me. And that's what we want to talk about right now. What's going to fit you and what you need to select for your first gun or to move into additional coverage or something like that. Okay, so 380, very small grip. Smaller guns tend to be a little bit more snappy. They're not as powerful, but there's not as much mass in the gun to be able to absorb some of that recoil. So they tend to flip just a little bit more. They might feel like a bigger, more powerful gun, but it's just because they're so lightweight that they are snapping so quick with those rounds that, you know, sometimes smaller gun may be a little bit more difficult to handle on the recoil. So moving on, putting this back in again. I can still carry this, and as a matter of fact, I have my own personal LCP that I carry on a regular basis when I'm wanting to go with something that has very little print, very little when I can conceal it very well. Moving up in caliber, we have the SIG 365 SAS. Now, all these firearms have already been cleared multiple times. So with me handling these, there's no ammunition anywhere. We know we got a lot of guns out, stuff like that, and we're pointing them in different directions and talking about them. So all this is already cleared and taken care of. So we have the SIG SAS. This is a very compact, but this steps up in caliber. This goes to 9mm, and it's probably the next smallest gun compared to that 9mm. You got SIG has this, and they have a couple other models of gun, but this is what we have on hand. This is going to be a very compact 9mm. So if you're wanting more stopping power and a little bit more round capacity, this is what you're going to be moving up to. This gun is a very concealable. It makes it very easy to hide this on your body when you're trying to go concealed carry. On this one here, this is about as this would be very comfortable with the magazine is in this gun. I have all the magazines out for a specific reason, but with the magazine in this gun, it gives me just enough to get a little bit of pinky on here. So this is what you're looking for when you're going to pick these guns. You want to be able to just be able to get your hand around it and be able to know that you can control that gun with one hand. It not necessarily doesn't have to be two hands, but you want it, at a minimum, you want to be able to get a full grip on the gun and be able to control it with one hand, because most likely you're going to have other things going on in a defensive situation. You're going to have to grab kids, get them out of the way, spouse, get them out of the way, or just be able to open the door to exit to get yourself to safety. So there's a lot of different things to think about. So making sure that you can control your gun with one hand is, of course, one of them. Stepping up to a Glock 43, this is my personal carry. I carry this quite a bit, and with my magazine extension I have that I usually run on this, it brings my magazine all the way down here. It gives me a couple extra rounds. I carry 10 rounds in the gun, and then this is about, I could probably shoot this gun just about all day, no problems. So this is a good balance for me. So this is why I settled on this. It's just big enough that I can control it and I can shoot with it and I can train with it on a regular basis, but it's not small enough that I'm trying to, like if I can't train with it or I can't shoot it on a regular basis, then I want to get to something that I can. So that way I get reps in. I'm sending rounds down range. I'm practicing, working on these different things. Okay, so this is about the lowest for me that I like to go unless I really need to go ultra compact. Next, we're stepping up to, we got a Faxon FX19 here. This is a 9mm also, but now you're getting into a different category where you're going into these that I showed you all before. Those are subcompact models. Now we're getting into compact models. The compact models are still, they're trying to bridge that gap between full size and subcompact, and what they offer is a little bit more grip surface for you to run the gun, but the biggest thing they offer is round capacity. So once you start going up into these, this is when you decided that you want more than 7 rounds or 8 rounds that some of these micros or some of these subcompacts or ultra compacts or different categories that they fall under. You're deciding that you want more than 8 rounds in the gun. You want to run 10, 15 rounds, something like that. You can get 10 rounds in this, but this will bring you 15 to 17 rounds, okay? So that's when you're starting to bridge the gap. So when you get into home defense, things like that, you want more round capacity if you don't have to carry the gun around a lot. But if you do have to carry the gun around a lot, that's when you have to start weighing out the balance. So you have of course, we have all of our modern day polymer frame firearms that have high round capacities. Then you also have your old school guns. This is old Smith & Wesson, alloy lower, steel upper. This comes in 15 and 17 round capacities. And it's one of the things that we also want to address, and part of the reason I threw this on here is because when you get into these smaller guns, some people want a gun with a safety, some people don't. In law enforcement, all these years, I carried a gun that didn't have a safety, so I just got used to running a gun without a safety. So it wasn't something that it was really much of a thought. But there are always extra precautions when you run a gun that doesn't have a manual safety on it. So for some of us, in your consideration when you're trying to pick your pistol, decide whether you want a manual safety or not. If you do have a manual safety, or you do pick one with a manual safety, you want to train with that. You want to get out, get on the range, you want to draw your pistol and disengage the safety fire your round, and then you want to re-engage the safety and work your way back to the holster. You want to purposely train for this safety. If you shoot this gun here on a regular basis with no safety, and then you get into an emergency situation and you are carrying a gun with a safety, you are going to come out, you're going to squeeze the trigger, nothing's going to happen. Then you're going to remember that that you have to hit the safety, you're going to disengage it, and then you're going to follow up with your follow-up shots. But you've cost yourself precious seconds in a self-defense situation. So you want to train with it if you want to run a safety. Okay. So now we're getting up into, I'm still in 9mm caliber. We're getting up into full-size guns. So this is something that it would probably be one of my go-tos for a home defense because I have big magazine extensions. This is a Glock 34 competition model. I shoot it quite a bit, so I know how to operate this with my eyes closed. But I also have large magazine capacity. I have big extensions that go on here. So when I pick this gun up, I can have almost 20 rounds, maybe depending on the magazine, up to 23 rounds in this gun. But one of the additions that I've thrown on here is I've thrown a light. Okay, so when you get into your home defense situation, this would probably be my go-to for home defense. I keep this readily available at home, and being able to grab this gun and have your light and everything that you need on the gun helps you in a lot of ways. You're going through to clear your house at night, and you have one of these blinding lights and someone is in your house, you can, and they come around, they startle you, you can hit them with that light. It's going to blind them. One, it's going to buy you a little bit of time to be able to get your position, shoot, make a decision, whatever that you need those precious milliseconds for. But also what it does is this buys you target recognition. This allows you to fully see with blinding brilliance what you're shooting at and what's behind it. Because when you turn one of these things on, these things are just, the weapon mounted lights nowadays are amazing, and they can take a beating and they last forever. They're extremely strong, but I would suggest one of these for every single home defense gun that you have, because it allows you to instantly recognize your threat. So it's not a family member, a college student returning home. I have a son in college, and it's not him returning home in the middle of the night because school's closed down for a virus. It allows you to see exactly what you're engaging. Okay, so this is the high round count, light for target recognition, all this stuff here. But I'm not going to go around carrying this. This isn't a concealed carry piece. So this is something that is going to be strictly home defense or competition. All right, moving up, we are into some high dollar territory here. This is AWT Pro Series Tactical 3. This is a great pistol. We've done a review on this, but what we're stepping up into now is we're stepping up into a little more reliability, a little more firepower. So I say a little more, it's quite a bit more. So you're stepping up to 45 caliber. Some of the 45s you can get double stacked, so you can maintain your high round count if you want. But with the 45s and 1911s typically go to a single stack magazine at this point. So you're diminishing your round count, but you're making it up in firepower. So if you're confident in your firearms skills, this is a great gun, anybody would love to have it and say, hey, yeah, that's my home defense gun. But if you're not a good shooter, you may want to pick something that has a higher magazine capacity, because you're only going to get 7 to 8 rounds with this, depending on, or maybe even a little bit more depending on the magazine that you're using. So your shot placement and your marksmanship is going to come into play when you get into the bigger caliber guns, because the bullets are bigger, they're fatter, they take up more space, and you have less room in the gun to be able to manage that. Okay, so great gun, we love it. And then moving on to the new Ruger 5.7. All right, so this gun is essentially the same size as my competition gun. So this is about the same footprint, about the same weight and everything, but this is now shooting a 5.7 caliber. Okay, so 5.7 is a very skinny cartridge, So what this makes up for, and some people will say in firepower against like a personal defense round, like the 45 personal defense load or bullet, this makes up for in the fact it comes with standard with a 20 round mag if you're not living in one of the states that have magazine capacity restrictions. So this gun right out of the box, you're carrying 20 rounds. These lights and everything all go on here just as well, so this would make just as good a home defense gun as any of the others. Some people believe that there's over penetration, stuff like that with the 5.7 because it is a very fast round. It is essentially a small rifle round. It's just look, it's put on a photocopier and just shrunk down, but it shoots a small rifle round. But that's a whole nother video on ballistics of different rounds. We're just wanting to introduce the guns and your gun selection. All right, so now here we are, big boy status, right? So this 357 Magnum. This is a Smith & Wesson revolver, and plenty of people have had these. They've been around. They're still making these. These are still going strong. A lot of people like these for their reliability. These guns are very reliable. They have very good trigger in them, in all of them. If you cock this, you can pull the trigger. It's going to give you a light pull. If you just pull it regular, it's going to give you a hard pull. So it's a double action, single action. So it's going to prevent accidental discharge because there's such a heavy pull on the first one. And some guns are different. Some of these wheel guns are different in the fact that some have lighter pulls on the first double action pull, and then the single action pulls on almost all revolvers are so much better than any polymer guns or any of the modern stuff. So that's why a lot of people like these. But what you're running into is you're running into round count. Okay, so now you're getting into, you have 6 shots in these. They're going to be very dependable. They're going to be there. They're most likely going to go off. You're not going to have jamming or feeding issues or anything that you run into with a semi-automatic. But you're running into 6 rounds total. Okay, so now this is where your judicious marksmanship is going to come into play. These are great, but you have limited round count. But some of the great things about these is that you can stack and stagger your rounds in different ways. So you can load revolvers, and you can get other calibers, such as like 410s. You have the Judge, it comes in 410, 45 long Colt, different things like that, and you can get different types of specialty rounds. So with some of these, you can take these in the 410s and you can get non-lethal rounds. You can get birdshot. You can get all these different. You can still get birdshot and stuff like that in some of these 9mm casings and offerings and 45 offerings. But you have more versatility with a revolver, because then you can load your first round with, say, a non-lethal of some sort, and then your second round can be a birdshot, and then your third round can be a 38 special, and then your fourth round could be 357 mag, and then on and on and on. You can just go up the escalation, or you can just put one birdshot and all the rest defensive 357, defensive 357 Magnum. Okay, so there's a lot of versatility, and especially when you get into the 410 calibers, we get the 410, 45s. There's a lot of specialty rounds in 410. So you can take this and be able to employ a lot of different needs with one gun. Only thing you run into with revolvers is, one, they're big. They're heavy. They're all, mostly all steel. There are some that have polymer frames, stuff like that. But 2, no accessory rails for lights or anything, or any of that sort. So you're limited in sight options as well. So these things are meant to be run this way out of the box. Most people aren't taking these out. These guns here, you buy these, you get them out, and then people start customizing them. They start making them to fit their needs. They start changing sights, they start changing grips, they start changing magazine releases, stuff like that. These guns aren't really meant to change that much. The only thing that you usually change is maybe this grip here. This grip came originally with a hard plastic grip, and I later on put this big Hogue grip on here for really good purchase on the gun. So this gun here fits very well in my hand. Of course, I can manipulate this one-handed. This thing will send a big fireball out. If I happen to miss my target, I will most likely catch it on fire with this gun here. But still a great defense gun. So we've looked at a bunch of the different models, and also some of the others that we've done that I didn't bring out and put on the table is like your Bond Arms Derringers. Those come from 9mm all the way up to 45 410, and they are very small and compact as well. So that is also an option. But now we've covered all these. Now we're going to go ahead and jump into a little bit of holster selection for each one of these.